Give a little look at yourself and think, Christ. Today I'm going to do a review that compares two Chinese fountain pens. They are both vacuum fillers. Direct translation from the Chinese negative pressure pens, which I think is actually a rather more marvellous and informative way of phrasing it. Not only are they both negative pressure pens, they are demonstrators, i.e. they're transparent-ish. They are, respectively, the Wing Sung 3013 amber-coloured demonstrator and the Caliarts Ego II demonstrator negative pressure fountain pen. The other thing that these two pens have in common is their price, which is under $5. I always thought of vacuum filler pens as being kind of pricey. I thought it was a prerequisite, or it was something to do with their advanced technology and all the engineering involved. But no, both of these pens have been engineered at a very low production cost. One wonders how it's achieved, and one does not know the answer. All I can do is react to these pens, the Wing Sung 3013. Why go to all the trouble of designing a nice pen and then calling it the 3013? I mean, maybe there's some reference information contained in those digits, like a Dewey system in a barbecue, in a library. First impressions of this pen. I've read in various places online that the design is considered boring or conservative or functional. I'm actually quite a fan of the design of this pen. What do I like about it? I don't want to get too fanciful here. Think the Chrysler building. Art Deco. Sort of subdued Art Deco, but I don't know, there's a sort of geometrical pattern on the cap which is subtly mirrored on the lower finial, aka piston filler twizzly device. The other thing I like, which I think is a really lovely detail, not only does it feel quite pleasant in the hand and provide much needed grip on both cap and piston filling vacuum pumping mechanism, but it looks really gorgeous. It catches the light, and I think it's a really nice design. It reminds me of a column in an Egyptian temple, you know, a sort of bunch of reeds, those sort of plant-themed columns. The way it kind of curves inwards like this from a diameter 14 millimeters at its widest to 11.9 at its least wide as it tapers down. The other thing that I certainly notice are the number of metal parts to this pen. The piston filling mechanism is metal. Metal here, metal on the clip the clip is made of metal, as are the cap bands. And there's also a metal insert in the section, which we'll get to in a moment. Another superficial reaction I had to this pen was its similarity to the Pilot Custom 823. It's not really very similar to the Pilot Custom 823, but they're both piston fillers and they're both amber-coloured demonstrators, or at least the ones I happen to own are. We'll put that over there. It's probably got nothing to do with this pen. Much more promising comparison in the Caliarts Ego II, although one thing I did pick up on when I was burrowing into the comparison between these, because my superficial comparison for the Caliarts Ego II was the TWSBI 580 Diamond, and I was nosing up to it and examining it, and then I suddenly noticed that the geometrical carved bits and bobs on the shaft of the TWSBI Diamond are exactly the same as the carved bits and bobs on the Wing Sung 3013. Now, I mentioned the price at the beginning of this review, and I rarely do that. These two, the Wing Sung was about $3.55, £2.85. The Caliarts was $4.14, or £3.40. The TWSBI is $50 on the TWSBI website. The Pilot 823, priced on Goulet at $288. But anyway, this review isn't really to do with those pens. This review is to do with these two pens. First impressions of the Caliarts Ego II. Well, first thing to say is I'd completely forgotten that I ordered it, and I opened it without any clear idea of what I was opening, and was unable to identify it from any markings on the pen itself. It came in a rather smart little metal tin, considering the price. It came in this quite neat little tin with a little spanner and some spare rubber O-rings. which come into play when you're dealing with pens that have all this ink sloshing around in the shaft in order to help protect your fine clothing from being damaged or stained irreparably or reparably. Completely transparent, including the rather sturdy, chunky looking, substantial filling mechanism, which is, well, if not completely transparent, at least opaque, which is intriguing. Intriguing. I don't know about intriguing, I'm just describing what it looks like. The echoed functional features turned into design features, namely the threads, which you can also see around the mechanism, and there's carving on the shaft and on the lower finial, not really to aid gripping in this case, but rather to catch the light when you twirl the pen, and the effect is very nice. It's light as a feather. When writing, it really does sail across the page. Both of these pens are the same length, 142 millimeters. The uncapped length of the Caliarts is 131, which is 1 millimeter shorter uncapped than the Wingsung 3013. In terms of hand feel, because of all the metal, it is certainly a weightier pen than the Caliarts. It's by no means a heavy pen. I wouldn't say there's any chance of discomfort writing with this. The balance is good. It's somewhat engineered by the presence of this metal in the section, maybe making up for all the metal you've got in the filling mechanism at the other end. At the sharp edges of this little step up from the threads to our magnificent Egyptian column-like shaft, which then tapers down. And the other thing that immediately hits me, at least, is the transparent feed. Ooh. You see why I'm always covered in ink? Looks like a little claw print, like a little panda claw print. The looks of the Caliarts are fine, fairly anonymous. It's very subtle and understated kind of pen. It seems to fit together fairly well. Both pens are plastic. The vast majority of the Caliarts is plastic, much more metal involved in the Wingsung. Both clips are long clips, and both are fairly tight clips, as you would hope. The striking design feature of the Caliarts is how pointy it is. You could have someone's eye out with that if you wanted to. If you were bloody murderous, I suppose you could. But then I suppose if you were murderous enough, you could have someone's eye out with anything. Both clip really well, raised upwards just to catch. In fact, you could crack under your fingernail, and really that could be quite painful. Watch out! Beware! Clip, clip. Really crappy reason to be in a hospital right now, isn't it? A fountain pen clip stuck under my neck. No, hopefully you wouldn't do enough damage that would warrant a hospital trip, but still, careful. Much more vanilla design, the clip here. Somewhat wide, like Donald Trump's tie flopping around meaninglessly, widens as it goes downwards. It has a little ridge down the centre. You can see the moulding of both clips from underneath, which I always find distressing. It is funny how they're exactly the same length. The Wingsung 3013 shaft begins with this major step up from the section, and then you have these broad threads, and then you have 2 or 3 millimeters step, and the edge, as I mentioned, is a bit sharp. All sorts of sharp edges. These are not pens for toddlers. Tapering down, you have the filling mechanism integrated into the lower finial, and a slight doming or tent-like shape to the lower finial. The shape of the Caliarts Ego is fairly unremarkable again. It has this exposed rubber O-ring reassuring you that there won't be any leaks. Both pens have these features. They're not going to explode in your pocket, which is very thoughtful. It sits very nicely in your hand. There's almost no weight to it, so there's very little to think about balance-wise. Shape and size of the pen is almost uniform. It just tapers down slightly on the lower finial. The cap of the Wingsung 3013 is heavy, and once you're writing, it's totally uninvolved in the procedure, or at least I wouldn't recommend trying to post this pen. Firstly, you do not need any more weight on the back of the pen. There's already plenty, and the balance just about works. If you posted it, it would be well off, which is presumably why it's almost explicitly designed not to post. Doesn't, I mean, I could, yeah, I mean, I've bashed it on, but it's not very happy there. Very wide lower cap band, includes the words Wing Sung in Chinese characters and the numbers 3013, the name of the pen. Do you remember those magazines that you would get? They would come every week or every 2 weeks, and every week you'd get another piece of something that you would then eventually build into a model ship or something like that. And every week you'd just get a few pieces attached to the front of the magazine, and eventually you'd build your model ship or aeroplane or whatever. It feels a bit like it's been constructed from parts like that. Just first, like the way you can just see the screw in the bottom of the cap there holding the clip on, that's fairly unusual. It's very robust, there's a sort of homemade quality to that. And the other is when I first went to fill the pen, I found it very easy, and I thought I was doing it right, but I just unscrewed both the lower finial and also this ring, this metal ring, which is what secures the filling mechanism. You can dismantle this pen entirely with your hands, pull the plunger right out, and it all just dismantles. And I found myself, as I was thinking I'm about to fill this pen, with these pieces in my hands. If you just don't gormlessly unscrew the metal ring down here, then it works very much like any other piston filler. It seems like somebody's little pet project, and the result is rather nice. Given that how easily it fell apart in my hands, I suppose I should also mention that it is actually quite tightly put together. And as you screw the cap in, there's quite an unusual capping sensation. I don't know how to describe it, but the threads are meeting and screwing into rubber O-ring and then tightening. And there's a definite end point to the tightening, which is usually quite reassuring, because you don't think you're going to split the plastic. But a definite seal has formed when you tighten this pen. Threads on the Caliarts Ego II are a similar capping sensation, actually. With this one, it feels like splitting might be a bit more of an issue. In fact, I can feel myself doing something rather nasty to the threads just by doing that. I also managed to untighten the plunger, which is a worry. There we are, you can see it in action, perhaps ill-advisedly, and bubbling through the feed. And this is one of the joys of, look at that live action, like a science experiment. It's barely postable, this one as well. The cap just sits there, there's no friction. It would be fine if you wanted to jam it on to right post it, because the whole thing weighs very, very, very little. The writing, the Wing Sung has a number 5 friction fit nib. Mine is a fine, and I love the way it writes. It writes wet, it writes comfortably, and it's very, very conducive to quick but small, neat writing, and there's a great ink flow on it. This pen also writes nicely. It's a little dry, would be my main comment with this one. It's also a fine nib. I'm pretty sure it's a number 5. Writes a little dry. The writing sample for the showdown between the Caliarts Ego II negative pressure pen and the Wing Sung, terrible W there, Wing Sung 3013 with Konpiki ink from the storied Iro Shizuku line by Pilot. And we're executing this morning's review on Midori paper. Now there, we've just managed to demonstrate one of the small issues I have with this pen, which is its propensity to occasionally expel rather too much ink. And I think that comes down to the fact that, unlike many or most other vacuum piston fillers, there is not a firm seal around the plunger, meaning you don't need to loosen the lower finial for longer writing sessions in order to keep the ink flow going. there isn't a problem there. But I suspect that's why, just from my jiggly little progress across my apartment a couple of times this morning, we get this kind of business and this kind of cap stainage, which is one problem I really can't ignore with this pen. However, slightly more dramatic events with the Caliarts. I was filling it this morning and managed, without being particularly brutal, I'm sure, to detach the lower finial from the plunging assembly. That's created something of a worry. I certainly wouldn't want to do much with this pen following this writing sample unless I'm being silly and there is just some neat little way I can clip it back together, but it doesn't seem that way at all. Nonetheless, it still works well enough for us to do the writing sample, and perhaps you can resolve to be a little more careful than me. The Caliarts Ego II, which we have inked with Inaho ink, also from the Iro Chizuku line by Pilot. Also on Midori paper, which I just adore. A bit of friction, a bit of resistance with Midori paper, which I enjoy. Bite. Let's start off with the Wing Sung 3013. Now, it lays down a lovely velvety line, nice and wet, much less wet on the horizontals than the verticals, but plenty of ink, absolutely no flow issues, which is not so surprising given that it's occasionally just leaking ink. Lovely. Panda. Six. Jinxed. Zebra. Misspelt. For quick game of whist. Lovely line. Wet to the point of leaky. And it's got a sort of a velvety resistance on the page, which I find really, really pleasant to write with. I was full-blown surprised when I started using this pen at how well it worked. If you're interested in just seeing what a vacuum filler is like, this is an excellent choice. Let's just quickly do a comparison with the Caliarts, with which I've been a little less impressed. I was willing to make some concessions due to its sort of jolly design and things, but now that it's snapped on me, I'm a bit less inclined to do that. Good ink flow. I would say there's a dryness to it. You can just see that there, perhaps in the horizontal lines. You can get a bit of flex. I don't know necessarily whether it would flex back given the wrong sort of pressure. Lovely Panda, 6 Jinxed Zebra, 4 quick game of whist. So it flows fine, it's a nice line, it's not unpleasant to use at all. It flies across the page because it's so light. Irrespective of the breakages, no doubt caused by my clumsiness, the slight dryness. It's a good writer, but the more useful pen to own, and also a great pen for somebody who's wondering what on earth a piston filler is about, seeking to get one and try it out without major financial investment. This would be an excellent choice, the Wing Sung 3013. If you are new to these types of pens, do be careful when you're unscrewing the lower finial. When I first came to open it, see, this is how you should open it properly, but I managed to unscrew this ring, which allows the whole assembly to come out. But I've actually tightened it so much that's not the case now. I can show you how it came out when I first got the pen. There you are. So once that's released, the whole lot can be encouraged to exit. And this really did happen without much of an effort when I first got the pen, and I found myself pulling the whole lot out like this. You don't want to do that. You don't need to do that unless you're cleaning the pen. If you're new to these, don't take this madness as an indicator of what you should do. You'll get into all sorts of trouble. Oh, what I have succeeded in demonstrating is that the cap leaks. How interesting. Should I get some bloody Play-Doh out next? A messy review from Panda Pen Club. Clearly there's a bit of scope for leaking down here. However, my purpose in showing you this was to demonstrate that when you get the pen, if you find yourself unscrewing this one, the whole lot coming out and it all looking rather alarming, don't worry, you're just being an idiot. No, don't worry, you're just unscrewing a bit that's not really meant to be unscrewed most of the time. Why not quickly show you how it's meant to be filled? I've unscrewed the lower blind cap, as I rarely refer to it. Pulling the blind cap up, I'm putting the pen in the ink bottle like a detonator. I'm going to push down, and lovely little gasp from the pen. You may want to do it a second time with the pen fully immersed. There we are. Now it doesn't fill the whole way. Lovely. Working order fountain pen. Enjoyable stuff. Good fun. Get a few wet wipes and happy exploring the wonderful hobby of fountain pens.